Hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. And this lecture is going to cover Glacier Vault Lock. So let's begin. Now, if you've already done the Solution Architect Associate course, you will already be very familiar with Glacier. But just to recap, Glacier is an extremely low-cost cloud storage service, and it's used for data archiving and long-term backups. And you can store your data for as little as $0.004 per gig per month. So it is an extremely cheap option for archiving your data. And the data is stored in archives. So that means a single file or multiple files stored in a tar or zip file that represents an archive. And you can organize your archives into vaults. So you can group them together in a vault. And a vault is a container which stores one or more archives. Now you can configure and enforce compliance controls over your individual Glacier vaults using a vault lock policy. And a vault lock policy is similar to an identity access management policy, and it's what you use to configure controls and permissions for your Glacier vault. And when you configure the policy is going to apply to all the archives contained within that vault. And two really common use cases for Glacier vaults are to configure a worm archive, which means write once, read many. And to do that, you would configure a policy which only allows read access. It doesn't allow write or delete. And then the other really common use case is to create a data retention policy. So for example, you might want to create a 5-year retention policy on some of your archives if you had a regulatory requirement. And in order to do that, you would simply create a policy which prevents the deletion of any archives which are less than 5 years old. So let's take a look at an example vault lock policy. And you can see that it's really similar to an identity access management policy. We've got the version ID and the statement. And then the statement ID is deny based on archive age. The principal is star, so that means it's going to apply to everybody. The effect is deny, and the action is Glacier delete archive. So this policy is going to deny the ability to delete archives. And you specify which resource it's going to apply to. So we've got the ARN of the vault which it applies to. And then this policy will apply to all of the archives within this vault. And then finally, we have the condition, which stipulates that the policy applies to any archive which is less than 365 days in age. So effectively, this policy is going to deny all users the ability to delete any archive in this Glacier vault if the archive was created less than 365 days ago. So it's basically forcing a 365-day retention period on all archives contained in the vault. Now, there are 2 steps involved in configuring a vault lock. First of all, you need to create your vault lock policy, and then you need to initiate the lock by attaching the policy to your vault. And this will set the lock to an in progress state. But at this stage, it won't have taken effect. It will just be in progress. You then have 24 hours to validate the lock policy. So you can try it out and check that the policy is behaving as you expect. And if it doesn't work as expected, you can completely abort the entire process. However, once you have validated your vault lock policy, you cannot change it, you cannot delete it. So the lock policies are completely immutable. And once it's set in place, you cannot change it. So let's take a look at some of our exam tips. Glacier is the low-cost cloud storage for archiving and long-term backup. Your files are stored as archives, and archives are organized and stored in vaults. And a vault lock policy allows you to configure and enforce compliance controls for Glacier vaults. So you can configure write once, read many archives by creating a policy which only allows read access and it doesn't allow write or delete. And you can also create data retention policies, for example, enforcing a 5-year retention by denying users the ability to delete any archive which was created less than 5 years ago. So that is everything that you should need to know about Glacier Vault Lock. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.